Welcome to episode number 225, where I'm speaking with Divya Alter about dairy alternatives in Ayurvedic cooking. We talk about what to consider when substituting dairy, we talk about food compatibility, and we go into detail on the alternatives: almonds, sunflower seeds, cashews, oats, hazelnuts, walnuts, pistachios, and coconut. So please stay tuned. Welcome to the Elements of Ayurveda podcast. I'm your host, Colette, and I hope to educate and empower you to take charge of your health and well-being, preventing disease in the body and mind so that you can thrive in life. I will be sharing the holistic teachings of Ayurveda, which is the ancient healing tradition from India. Now, if you're new to Ayurveda, I recommend listening to the first couple of episodes where I do an introduction to Ayurveda and the mind-body types. And if you like the content, please be sure to subscribe or follow the podcast so the new episodes will automatically download for you. Also, you may want to check out my private Elements community, which is away from social media. It's a safe space for like-minded people to come together, to connect, to share, to support each other, and to continue the conversation from the podcast episodes. Check out the link in the show notes or visit my website, elementshealingandwellbeing.com, and just click on the community tab. And I hope to connect with you there. Thanks for listening. And now here's a new episode. This episode is sponsored by New World Ayurveda. If you're interested in working with client case studies from day one of your training, consider becoming an Ayurvedic practitioner through New World Ayurveda School. This way you learn the theory of Ayurveda at the same time as you learn how to apply it practically. Get a head start on working with clients by learning Ayurveda through being exposed to the most common problems clients face and how to correct them with diet, lifestyle, and herbs. The other interesting thing about New World Ayurveda is that you start learning pulse diagnosis from the very first day. They have had the most experience teaching Ayurveda online than any other Ayurveda school, and they have developed ways of teaching pulse diagnosis at a distance. And you get the chance to study Ayurveda with an MD through Ayurveda's premier online school, New World Ayurveda. For more information, go to newworldayurveda.com, and you'll also find that link in the show notes. Hello and welcome back to the Elements of Ayurveda podcast. Today, I'm very happy to welcome back Divya Alter, who is a certified nutritional consultant, educator, and chef in the Shaka Vansiya Ayurveda tradition. In 2016, Alter and her husband, Prentiss, founded Divya's Kitchen, a plant-based restaurant in New York City that reimagines classic dishes through an Ayurvedic lens. Divya's brand has since expanded to include a line of plant-based retail food products and educational videos. Alter is also the co-founder of Bhagavat Life, a non-profit culinary school that offers cooking classes and an Ayurvedic chef certification program. Divya is the author of What to Eat for How You Feel, the New Ayurveda Kitchen, and another cookbook, which is on its way, arriving in September. Right, Divya? Welcome back to the podcast.
Yes, thank you, Colette. It's so wonderful to be back. Thank you for having me.
Likewise, I know you've been busy with this new book.
Yes, I've been busy with all kinds of things, but I really enjoy speaking with you. So thank you for having me back.
Great. Well, I definitely want to talk about all the things you've been busy with later on in the podcast. But I do want to talk to you about, as the title says, dairy alternatives, because back in episode number 221, I spoke with Dr. Baswati on Ayurveda's perspective on dairy. And in that episode, she mentioned your name and that you had some great dairy alternatives for cooking. So this is what I'd like to talk about today. And I know, obviously, being a chef and having an Ayurvedic restaurant, you know, you come across this a lot. So let's dive in. And I guess let's start talking about what should we consider when we're thinking about using a dairy substitute?
Yeah, well, I really enjoyed the episode with Dr. Baswati. Thank you for sharing. This was very informative. It's very important to when you decide to substitute dairy with their alternatives, there are a few factors you always have to consider, because again, Ayurveda is always focuses on digestion in terms of food. How are you going to digest your food? And when I substitute non-dairy products for dairy, these are things that I think about. First of all, I think about food compatibility. So is the substitute going to be compatible in terms of digestion? Next thing I consider is the properties. So many times people think, oh yeah, dairy milk has protein, cashew milk has protein, or oat milk has protein, for example. Dairy milk has fat, cashew milk has fat. So in terms of chemical composition, they might be very similar. They might look similar in terms of texture and color, which I also consider, of course. But from an Ayurvedic point of view, you have to consider also the properties, like the main taste of the non-dairy substitute, whether it's milk or cheese. What is the main taste? What are the qualities in terms of, is it heavy to digest? Is it easy to digest? And then I would consider the potency or the metabolic effect. Is called virya in Sanskrit. So is it heating or cooling to the body? So that's really important, because very often people would say, oh yeah, I stopped eating dairy milk, but I eat coconut milk every day. Or I don't eat dairy yogurt, but I eat coconut yogurt every day, which is a big thing nowadays. And you can buy coconut yogurt in every health food store today. But coconut yogurt, so when you think about the qualities, coconut yogurt is extremely cooling, and it's so much heavier than dairy yogurt. So it's much more cooling than, dairy yogurt is predominantly, it has a heating potency. Coconut yogurt, because it's made from coconut milk, it's more cooling. So if you don't have coconut yogurt requires very strong agni, very strong digestion. And if you don't have that, coconut yogurt is going to congest you and make you more sick. So even though you're replacing the dairy with non-dairy yogurt to be healthier, this non-dairy substitute can still make you sick if you're not able to digest it.
Absolutely, yes. So you really, like you said, you have to consider all the qualities, the potency, the taste, the properties of what you're selecting rather than dairy. To talk a bit more about food compatibility, because this is a big one in Ayurveda, and this, incompatible foods can cause huge digestive upset for people. And I think this happens a lot with dairy, because one of the biggest problems with dairy is combining salt and dairy together. And if you think about it, we, tend to do that a lot in the West with things like omelets, and the milk is often added in with dishes that require salt as well. So can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So food compatibility, see, milk. Okay. So first of all, milk, yogurt, cheese, buttermilk, all these different dairy products, they have different set of food compatibility requirements. So milk or heavy cream with salt is incompatible for digestion. It kind of causes almost like a slow poisoning effect that can come up on your skin in a really unpleasant way. So yes, when you're making an omelet and you're adding milk or heavy cream, or you're making a bechamel sauce and you're seasoning it with salt, or you're there's so many other, creamy soup, you're making creamy vegetable soup and you're adding heavy cream to it, or milk. So all of this will be incompatible for digestion. And I've seen clinical studies of people who regularly have milk and so and the salt doesn't have to be in the milk per se. You could be having something with milk and heavy cream, and then another dish in the same meal that has salt. It all ends up in the stomach, right?
Exactly.
So the incompatibility is still active, and so that's a big one, and that's why a lot of people also react to dairy because of the incompatible combinations that they eat dairy with. You can add salt to cheese, you can add salt to yogurt, you can add salt to buttermilk, but not to milk. And so the way I avoid this in my recipes and in my also Divya's kitchen is using plant-based milk. So for example, my lasagna recipe, which is the best-selling dish for dinner at Divya's kitchen, I use bechamel sauce for the lasagna.
Okay.
And traditionally, you live in France, Colette. There's so much heavy cream in the food.
So much dairy.
And so bechamel sauce comes from France, and it's traditionally you make it with usually it's like either half and half or heavy cream and milk combination, and then you season it with salt. So to avoid the incompatibility, I use either cashew milk or sunflower milk for our lasagna, and it comes out great. The sauce is perfect. The color, the texture is delicious, but it feels so much lighter because the nut milk, and we soak the cashews or the sunflower seeds, so it's much lighter to digest, and it has the creamy consistency, satisfies your desire or your concept of bechamel sauce, but it doesn't feel heavy in the stomach, and it doesn't fight with all the other ingredients that dairy will be incompatible with.
Right. Yes, exactly. And I have to say, I've made sauces with the cashew nut, and it is a wonderful nut to use because it's very creamy.
Yes.
And I've used it like in like a gratin, where you usually have like a dairy sauce. So it's a wonderful way to substitute. And so other incompatible foods with milk, fruit, of course, another one. Sometimes, it's combined in smoothies, right?
Oh yeah. So the strawberry milkshake that's so popular here in America. It's or you're making like you're having some cereal for breakfast, and you pour cold milk on top, and you add some fresh berries to make it more nutritious, and all of this is incompatible. So the quick solution for all this is just to use a plant-based milk, and it really eliminates a lot of problems. So that's why I think a lot of people who turn vegan, they eliminate all these incompatibility issues, and they feel much better. Not just because they're avoiding dairy, but also because they're avoiding incompatible foods.
Right, exactly. And so let's go through some alternatives and the properties then of those alternatives, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So for milk, I really enjoy almond milk. I think almond milk comes closest to replacement of regular cow's milk, especially cow's milk. They're both a sweet taste, and almond milk has a cooling property just like regular milk does. See, almonds are interesting because they, when they're raw and unprocessed, just raw almonds, they tend to be more heating to the body. But once you soak them and you peel them, they turn cooling. So when you make almond milk, you soak the almonds overnight, and then you blend them with water. Ideally, you want to peel them first, then blend them with water, and then strain that through a nut milk bag, and then you get fresh almond milk. And my proportion for almond milk is 1-3. So 1 cup of raw almonds blended with, and after soaking, with 3 cups of water. A lot of chefs use 1-4 proportion, but I find it more diluted. In the 1-3 ratio, you can really, almond milk is so tasty. You can taste the almonds. It's very pleasant. So Almond milk is great in terms also of texture and color. It has a sweet taste and cooling properties. So, but not many, some people have nut allergies. Mm-hmm. In this case, I make sunflower milk. And sunflower milk, so same way, soaking the sunflower seeds and then blending them, same ratio 1-3 with water. But you have to really, like, those of you who've made sunflower milk, you notice that it has like a grayish, unpleasant color. And the way to get around that is you can, first of all, wash them really well after soaking, rinse them really well. And then as you're blending the sunflower milk with the water, add a tiny spoon, it could be like a 1/4 teaspoon for 3 cups of water of coconut oil. And that coconut oil, somehow it emulsifies and turns the color white.
So you add that as you're blending?
Yes, just a tiny bit, it could be 1/8 of a teaspoon, very little coconut oil, because somehow it turns the color white. Because for some people, it's just, especially if you're making it into a smoothie or a shake, the color may seem unpleasant because it looks kind of gray.
Right, exactly. And then sunflower seeds are considered cooling. Do they hold on to those properties?
Sunflower seeds are predominantly sweet. They remain cooling. They're also very high in protein. So sunflower seeds have more protein than beef. They're really good for on a vegetarian and vegan diet, good fats as well. We use sunflower milk at Divya's Kitchen for our vegan lasagna. We make it also nut-free. And so we make the bechamel sauce with sunflower milk. And we also use the sunflower milk to make our proprietary recipe of sunflower vegan mozzarella.
Oh, that sounds great.
The other milks that I use a lot are cashew milk. And because it's as you mentioned, it's more creamy. And the nice thing about cashew milk is you don't have to strain it through a nut milk bag. You just blend it and it blends to a creamy consistency. It doesn't have extra fiber that you have to strain away.
And is that 1-3 as well?
1-3, yes.
Okay.
And most nut milks that I make are 1-3. And then another one that we make at Divya's Kitchen is oat milk, which is very popular nowadays.
Yes. So how do you make oat milk?
There's different ways to make it. Some people don't like it when it's slimy. So the way we make it is we blend rolled oats but we soak them. So we soak the rolled oats, then we blend them with hot water. So, and a tiny pinch of salt. And the hot water does something to them. And then it doesn't look so slimy. So it doesn't feel slimy.
Very good. And it's so worth making your own, right? Buying your own raw materials, because when you look at the different brands in the supermarket, most of them have a lot of additives and preservatives.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, there is no comparison. Imagine next time if you're buying almond milk from the store, I'm talking to our audience, Colette, because I know you make your own. But next time you're trying to buy almond milk, especially if it's not refrigerated, because there are a few brands that sell it raw. I don't know how they manage, because the shelf life of almond milk is 3 days. It goes bad very quickly. But most of the almond milk is just in a can, sitting on the shelf, not refrigerated. Look at the ingredients, because the almond milk is supposed to be just almonds and water. You could add a tiny pinch of salt to enhance the almond flavor if you like, but the plain almond milk is just almonds and water. Yes. And you will see, I mean, there is like an inch, sometimes more long, fine print of what else is in there. Yeah. To keep it on the shelf without refrigerating it, and to preserve it. And it doesn't look good. It's not like the bright white color that it's supposed to be, and it doesn't taste good. It has this aftertaste.
Yeah. always telling people when they're looking, do your research. It will take, a little while when you go into the supermarket to look at all the brands and see which one has lots of additives. But also you find sometimes they'll put sunflower oil or some oil in with the milk sometimes. And I definitely feel that if there's oil if I buy a plant-based milk and there's oil in it, instantly I feel it. My cough reacts to it. Is instant.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like mucus and stuff. So yeah, if you are buying, if you can't make your own, you are buying it, that it should just be water, maybe a pinch of salt and the nut or seed. And that's it, right?
That's it. And it's and also the oil, it's like a polyunsaturated hydrogenated oil. It's not even the reason they do that is because they try to create that creamy texture. Also, the store-bought milks use much less almonds per cup of almond milk than when you make it at home, like the way I recommend. So the nutritional values also. What to speak of the properties from an Ayurvedic perspective is just dead. There is no prana in it.
Yeah, exactly. And the fact that, yes, that you've soaked them and then you're using it, you're making it and then using it within 3 days.
Yeah. And, it's so empowering to know how to make it yourself. Yeah. And it's so easy to make. And if you have kids, teach them how to make almond milk. They love squeezing the almonds. It's just such a family experience as well. So,
yeah. And their little fingers are really good for taking off the husk off the almonds.
Yes. Yeah.
Because that can be the most challenging bit.
To count the almonds, it could be like a math exercise for them. One of my students, her son, when he was 5, and she was taking my culinary training, and she said, yeah, so we were making almond milk, so I gave him 1 cup of raw almonds, and I asked him to count how many almonds are in a cup of almonds. So he counted. He counted to 125, and I was like, wow, I would never have the patience to count the almonds in a cup.
Very good educational experience as well. And talking about almonds, of course, then with that outer husk can be very hard to digest. And so you're saying that almonds are considered heating, but then when you soak them and you peel them, they're then more sweet and cooling.
Yes, the water, which is sweet and cooling by nature, changes the guna, that property of almonds.
And then the properties of cashew nuts?
Well, cashews, they're usually more heating. They're more acidic also. So cashews are one of the heaviest nuts to digest when they're just raw. Mm-hmm. They can be more acidic and more heating. So that's why they're not recommended so much for Pitta. In general, most nuts are predominantly vata balancing, and they can aggravate Pitta and Kapha. Right. But if you soak them, again, that changes the property and makes it much easier to digest, lighter in fat, and also more cooling. Like pine nuts, or even recently, one of my students gave me cedar nuts, which like from the cedar tree. They're technically the seeds of those trees, and but they're not really nuts. But pine nuts they have that nutty property. So a lot of people who are allergic to nuts, they can handle pine nuts, but they're expensive. So I like also hazelnut milk.
Yeah, that's another good one. Yeah,
I like to blend it with dry fruits in soaked dry fruits in the winter especially. I like walnuts, soaked walnuts, and making them into milk. In my first cookbook, What to Eat for How You Feel, I have a really nice recipe for, I call it iron smoothie, which is soaked dry fruits and nuts, and you just blend them with some spices. It's a great smoothie for the winter.
Okay, and what liquid are you using in that?
Well, I just blend it with water, but then I call for soaked almonds, soaked and peeled almonds, and soaked walnuts. And the combination with the soaked raisins and dates and apricots and figs, it's just really delicious.
Wow, that's great. Okay, and I want to go back to talk more about the properties of some of the nuts you just mentioned. Okay, hazelnuts.
Hazelnuts are also without the skin. With the skin, they're more heating. They were not described in the Ayurvedic text because they grow in northern regions. I grew up in Bulgaria, which and especially when my grandparents lived there were so many wild hazelnut trees. It's really so they're very rich in fats. So anything that's high in fat will be heavy to digest. They're dense and heavy. Yes. So for eating nuts, enjoying nuts, I mean, the winter season is the best, not so much in spring. Mm-hmm. When you make it into a milk, of course, you dilute it with water, so it's much easier to digest. Like the way I would serve nuts is either soaked, and I'll make them into milks or sauces, whatever. Or a recipe I learned from my main Ayurveda teacher, Vaidya Ramakant Mishra. One time he was teaching at our culinary training here in New York, and it was kind of late at night. Well, it was like 8 o'clock, and he was so hungry. After you teach, you can get really hungry. And he's like, I need a quick snack. And I'm like, okay, what can I make you? And he said, well, take like a handful of different nuts. Pistachios are another one that I like to use. Oh, yeah. Like different types of nuts. And he said, so toast them. Here, take a little bit of ghee and toast some curry leaves, a lot of chili. Oh my God, so much chili, and ginger, and a little bit of his mom's masala. It's a really delicious spice blend that he has. And then added the nuts, and I toasted them for about 5 minutes until they turned golden brown and crispy. And these were like very spicy toasted nuts and ghee. And so I said, so you're not soaking them? And he said, well, there's no time to soak, but if you eat them like that, all the chili and ginger and the other spices will help you digest them.
Right, for sure.
Right away, don't eat them the next day because the fats will start to go rancid.
Oh, right. So it's a snack to eat straight away. And you mentioned, of course, nuts are better this time of year when our digestive fire is stronger, not in spring because they could be more cough aggravating. Right. Yeah. And some are more pitta aggravating for those who are sensitive to that. And then you did mention two others, walnuts and pistachios. So I know walnuts are more stringent, but obviously in the milk, when they're made into milk, that would be less of a problem.
Yep. Yeah. Walnuts are easy to digest. The walnuts are also very high in iodine and omega-3 fatty acids. So they are very healthy brain fat. So yeah, I mean, just like with vegetables and fruits and anything else, if you can eat nuts, like enjoy a variety of nuts, especially in the winter. If you have weak digestion, then just stick to soaked almonds because Ayurveda considers them the best because they're the easiest to digest.
And very sattvic.
Yes.
Yeah. And then pistachios?
Yeah, pistachios are also very nice. They're one interesting fact about pistachios is that they help lower cholesterol. So it's so interesting because they're so fatty, but they help lower bad cholesterol.
Great. And would you make a pistachio milk or in a sauce or something?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You can soak it. It's such a pleasant light green color. It's really beautiful. Yeah. And especially if you use the Sicilian pistachios, they're very green. They're like incredibly very bright green. So, but they're harder to find.
Okay. And then I'm thinking about, the nuts that are high, they're dense, they have a high fat content, so aggravating to cough, like we said. But if you're looking for a nut or seed milk, maybe would roasting the oats beforehand be a good way of processing for kapha, so that when you dry roast the oats, that they're lighter and then make it into a milk? Would that help, do you think?
Yeah, that could help. That could help as well. Okay. It will have a more of a taste, the taste will be stronger. The oat flavor will be stronger. Another milk I wanted to mention is coconut milk.
Yes.
So coconut milk, coconut is considered a fruit, not technically a nut. I mean, the nuts are also in the fruit category, but from an Ayurvedic perspective, from a Western perspective, coconut is still a fruit, and coconut is the most cooling. It has extremely cooling properties, and I like to make coconut milk from a young coconut. So I open the one that has a lot of coconut water.
Yes.
The one that you open when you're in India or a tropical country, they open it and give you a straw and you drink. So then after you drink the water, there's this meat, soft meat that's around the inner shell. So I scrape that and I blend it with water and make fresh coconut milk. And you can also make it from dry coconut, but I like the fresh coconut because it has very strong coconut flavor.
Yeah.
It's really delicious. It's heavier though. It's the heaviest coconut milk to drink, but it's very creamy. So if you want to come close to the coconut milk that comes out of a can, that consistency and color, then you can use young coconut.
Right. And so if because the older coconuts would be more heavy and harder to digest.
Well, they're more fibrous. So the coconut milk would not be as creamy.
Yes. Okay. So better using young coconut.
A few things about coconut milk, because I see even in Ayurvedic books, Colette, I'm like, they call for canned coconut milk. And I'm like, come on. I mean, again, the preservatives that are there and they're in this metal can for who knows how long. There is no prana, there is no life in that milk. It's loaded with chemicals. And I know it's convenient to make the coconut curry or the sauce or the dressing or whatever you're using it for. But again, there is no vibrational value to it. And the taste can be horrible. I mean, if you compare freshly made coconut milk with a canned coconut milk, you taste one after the other. You would never buy a canned coconut milk again. We recently recorded a masterclass series of Ayurvedic cooking videos that I recorded just recently. And in one of the classes, I show how to make fresh coconut, how to open the coconut, how to scrape it, and how to make the coconut milk, almond milk, and I speak about other dairy alternatives as well. And I show the dairy staples as well. So I'm very excited to share this very soon.
Great. So that's coming out soon?
Yes, in sometime in mid-March, we'll release these videos. So stay tuned. We're about to announce them in a couple of weeks. But see, that's the thing also is like not buying you have to know how to make these dairy alternatives so that you can stop buying the lesser quality options in the store. So that's why I'm so passionate about education, is let me teach you how to do it yourself so that you don't have to go for those dead store-bought alternatives.
So true. And absolutely. And it's so easy. Once you get into the habit of it, is just getting the raw materials, and then it's so easy to make, and you get into a rhythm of making these. Plus, then when you're sourcing your raw materials, your nuts or your seeds, you know exactly where you're getting them from.
Yeah, exactly.
You know? And like you said, it's going to be full of prana. You've just soaked them and you're using within a few days. It's so worth it and a lot less expensive.
Yeah, and also it's empowering. It builds your confidence, and you can pat yourself on the shoulder and say, "Hey, I know how to make almond milk, and I know how to make coconut milk."
Exactly. Two others I wanted to ask you about: rice milk and hemp milk.
Rice milk, yeah, that's other variety. So these are grain milks, just like oat, and you can also add soy milk to this if you want to.
Oh yeah.
I personally, I don't use these in my cooking. I don't use them at all. I never use soy, really. There are many issues with soy. The same with rice milk, and I just don't use them. But again, if you're thinking about what about rice milk or what about hemp milk, always go back to the properties of the initial ingredient and then the process by which it is prepared. Is it cooked? Is it like with soy milk, you have to heat it, you have to cook it technically. Right. With rice milk, maybe not. Hemp milk also not so much, but hemp is very heating by nature. Rice is cooling, but it's very starchy. So can you handle the starch?
And high sugar content.
Yeah. So you have to consider the proper, not just the chemical composition, but consider the properties of the starting ingredient, the process it's made, and then you can also do a taste test. So you can taste it and really, like, with attention, mindfully feel the taste on your tongue, swallow it slowly, and try to have the awareness to how does it feel in your body. What is your body? How is your body reacting to it? And then you decide if it's good for you or not.
I'm going to interrupt my conversation with Divya just for a moment because I want to elaborate on something Divya just mentioned there. She talked about having awareness about how your body reacts when you intake food. And I know for a lot of people that's very hard. But I have found in my own body and my experience of working with clients that an Ayurvedic cleanse can really help you create that awareness to those subtle changes in your body and mind. And the Ayurvedic cleanse helps because it not only helps to eliminate accumulated toxins, which can cloud your judgment, but it also helps to reset your body and you to experience your body in a balanced state. You're eating cleansing foods, easy digestible foods tailored to you for 1 week. And so your digestive system gets to relax, your doshas are pacified, and your taste buds become more sensitive. And then you start to gradually reintroduce foods, and you will then experience in your body how you react to these new foods you're reintroducing. You'll have that awareness that Divya is talking about, which is really key in understanding the subtle changes in your body and key in understanding when your doshas are aggravated. Now, I do have the next group discounted Digestive Reset Cleanse coming up March 25th. It's the spring cleanse as we transition through the seasons. So check out the link in the show notes or visit my website, elementshealingandwellbeing.com, and go to the events tab where you'll find that discounted group Digestive Reset Cleanse, which will help you create that awareness that we're talking about here.
One thing I wanted to mention, Colette, because again, going back to the principle of substitution, a lot of people use coconut milk and coconut products like coconut oil, coconut, what else? Coconut
butter,
chips, coconut butter. Oh, that's even heavier. That's really heavy. But they use it in replacement for ghee, for example. I've seen products that say vegan ghee that's coconut oil with turmeric in it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So you can't. Again, keep in mind that all coconut products, except for the water is the easiest to digest. But any other coconut product is very fatty, very heavy to digest, and very cooling. Mm-hmm. So for somebody who is vegan, eating a lot of coconut milk and coconut oil in the middle of the winter, and when it's cold, would be really incompatible, and they can start feeling congested and more prone to sickness. Mm-hmm. So again, I'm not against veganism if it's good for your health, but if you're using these substitutes that making you more sick on other levels, then what's the point? So choose the substitutes that work from a culinary point of view, but at the same time support your digestion and support your health. So I use coconut oil and milk in the summer when it's very hot. Mm-hmm. It's really good to have them then and cools down the body. But I sparingly use them. For myself, I hardly use them in the winter. If I'm preparing a vegan dish and I have to use coconut oil because I cannot use ghee or olive oil, then I would use coconut oil as an exception. But for myself, I avoid coconut products in the cold season.
Absolutely, yes, very cooling and very heavy to digest. How about these nut milks with combining with other foods? How do you manage with that in your kitchen?
They are so unlike dairy products. The nut milks and nut products are easier to combine with almost everything. So I wouldn't worry so much about it. again, if you're combining, what's the level of your digestive strength? So if like nuts are heavy to digest in general. So if you have weak digestion, don't combine nuts with other heavy foods like beans, like chickpeas, mm-hmm. or if you eat meat or fish. So these are very heavy to digest foods. Or what else is heavy? Like whole grains can be heavy for some people. So, but also how much nuts you're using. If you make a rice dish, I like to use toasted nuts as a garnish for grain dishes. Then just a tablespoon of nuts and they're toasted, so they're also easier to digest. Tablespoon of toasted nuts for 3 cups of cooked rice. It's not a big deal. But if you have a lot of nuts with a dish, if you're just using nuts for garnish, I don't think it's a big problem. But if you're using a lot of nuts, then you might be too heavy for you to digest.
Yes, exactly. Okay, very good. Okay, so we covered a lot on milks, on nut and seed and grain milks, which is great. And talking about other dairy alternatives, cheeses.
Yeah, cheeses. It's hard to make non-dairy cheese. So there are companies who do it. And all the cheeses that I've seen on the market that are being sold, I just look at the ingredients and there are all these fillers and stabilizers. Because vegan cheese, if you make it at home, it will go bad very quickly. Like the vegan mozzarella that we make at Divya's Kitchen, we make it once a week because the shelf life is 10 days. Wow. And we make it in a particular way to extend the shelf life to 10 days. If you make it completely raw and fermented, the shelf life is it's like not more than 5 days. So it's difficult. It's difficult to make high quality vegan cheese that doesn't have unwanted ingredients. And then the texture is the issue.
Right.
So they put a lot of, fillers and things to create the texture or the color. But again, what's the point if it's vegan cheese, but you're putting all these artificial ingredients in your body? So how is this healthy?
Mm-hmm. Right. So if you're somebody that does eat dairy, you would say opt for a good quality dairy cheese?
Yes. The fresh cheese, the non-fermented, non-aged cheese that's not made with animal rennet. And I mean, fresh paneer cheese is really the best cheese to make. You can make it at home. That's another recipe I teach in the videos. Uh-huh. But it is heavy. And should you eat it every day? Not really. For most people, not every day for sure.
Okay, good. Yeah, so like you said not all the alternatives are great. It doesn't mean that the dairy alternative is automatically better than the dairy product itself. You really have to, like we said, consider all the properties and the qualities in regards to your unique constitution, and also look at, if there's fillers or additives or preservatives added to increase the shelf life as well.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're vegan and you want to have vegan cheese, like have it as a treat once in a while, because when I go to the health food store and I look at the vegan cheeses because I'm just curious. I want to know what they put in it, because I have my recipe for vegan mozzarella, which unfortunately I'm not supposed to share with others, but it's a process for us to make it. It's actually kind of a time-consuming process, but we do it because we serve it at Divya's Kitchen in 2 dishes: the vegan lasagna and the vegan mozzarella plate. But we make it fresh and we use it very quickly. And with store-bought alternatives, they have to use preservatives to extend the shelf life, because otherwise it just doesn't make sense.
Right.
Business point of view.
Yeah, personally, I haven't tried any vegan cheese. It's not something I would normally use, but yeah, it's interesting to hear your point of view on that, and the fact that there are a lot of fillers in there too. So that's interesting to know. Okay. And I also wanted to ask you about yogurts as well. Like you talked about coconut yogurt and how that's very cooling and heavy. And that's a kind of popular go-to now for people. But again, to be aware of that, and particularly at this time of the year in the cool season.
Yeah, I recently had a client, she came for a nutritional consultation and she was like, I eat very healthy, I'm vegan, but I'm not feeling well. So I read her pulse and I was like, wow, there's so much clogging in your system. There is like, and she was congested, but it just, her channels were so clogged. So I was like, what? So tell me what you're eating. Mm-hmm. So for breakfast, lunch and dinner, and she said, well, for breakfast, I have coconut yogurt every morning. And it was like December. So and she had low Agni. She had like low digestive fire. And that's what coconut yogurt can do also. It can lower your digestive fire. And I told her, well, you have to stop this right away. First of all, never eat coconut yogurt for breakfast unless you wake up and you're so fiery that you don't know what to do with yourself. Then coconut yogurt is great. But coconut yogurt is best for lowering high pitta, high agni conditions. So when your pitta is very high, you're extremely overheated, and your agni, your digestive fire is so high that you're hungry every 2 hours and you're not fully assimilating the nutrients of your food, then eating coconut yogurt for a period of time will help you lower the agni and lower the pitta. But Vaidya Mishra recommended this to his patients. I know one of them, and just after a few weeks, like he checked his pulse, he's like, wow, your pitta is perfect. What are you doing? He's like, well, I had coconut yogurt every day the way you told me. And then Vaidya told him, okay, now stop eating the coconut yogurt, because if you continue, it will freeze your pitta. He used to say it will freeze your pitta. It will lower your pitta too much, and lower your agni, your digestive fire, and then you will go into low agni and indigestion.
Right. Yeah. And so it's always a balance. Yes. And I think it's, especially in this day and age, there's oftentimes things that are trending, foods that are trending, but we always have to consider first our constitution and then the season we're in. And, you know, what's our current health status? What's our current recruitee? We have to really be mindful of not just choosing what the latest trend is in food, but really be mindful of making conscious choices.
Yeah. And it comes with a little bit of having knowledge of the properties, the physiological effects, like the actions that certain foods have on the body and the mind. And that's what Ayurveda teaches us. That's what I teach all the time. And it's like, when you have this basic knowledge, then it's so much easier to make the healthiest choices for where you're at. No matter what diet you're following, you can make the healthiest choices if you're vegan, if you're lacto-vegetarian, if you're pescatarian. So learning about these effects that foods have on our body and mind can be extremely helpful to eat a healthy diet.
Absolutely. Well said. So Divya, tell us more about these videos.
Well, you know, Colette, that my passion of all the culinary aspects that I'm involved with is teaching. I just love teaching and sharing with people what I know, empowering people to learn how to have a deep relationship with nourishing food and prepare it at home. And so many people over the years, you know, we've been teaching in New York, in-person classes. We've done a lot of online Zoom classes. And we also have a culinary training. And a lot of people, especially readers of my book, or they from all over the world, they will say, I really want to study with you, but I cannot come to New York. I cannot take the culinary training. It's too long for me. Or the Zoom doesn't work so well. So we professionally recorded 5 masterclass style videos, very high end production. One is seasonal cooking with Ayurveda, in which I speak a lot about how to connect the taste of foods to the seasons and the way you're feeling. And I show recipes. I show 4 seasonal recipes. And, you know, whenever I teach cooking, I always speak about the healing properties of the ingredients I'm using. And then the other one is a 4-part series of on introduction to Ayurvedic cooking. And so I take you from all the theory behind Ayurvedic cooking, starting with your doshas and the 6 days. We talk about food compatibility, your meal portions, and all that. The second video is, and we make it interactive, so we have motion graphics and
great.
You can take notes, and every course comes with a workbook and learning activities. So you can choose the level of depth that you can do while studying the course, each course. And then the second class is about setting up your Ayurvedic kitchen. So I realized, you know, from teaching for so many years, I realized that a lot of people struggle with organizing the kitchen in a very efficient way that help them save time.
Yeah.
So I know we recorded an episode with you about how to set up your kitchen. So I actually show this on the video. We talk about kitchen organization, cleanliness, and time-saving tips as well. And then the third class is about essential staples. Like I mentioned, I show the recipes of how to make, how to transform dairy products. So starting from milk, how to make yogurt, how to make cultured butter and cultured ghee. I actually churn it on camera.
Oh, great.
And then paneer cheese, buttermilk, almond milk, coconut milk. And then the last video course is about cooking with spices. So we speak about the importance of spices, healing benefits, how to make spice blends, and then cooking methods with spices. And for each method, I show recipes, really delicious recipes, which most of these recipes are from my new cookbook also. So these are new recipes that nobody has seen yet.
Fantastic. So the videos are coming out soon.
Yes, we plan to release them in mid-March, and they will be very affordable. And again, it's not just a video that you watch and then you forget about it. We also provide a platform for building a community and talking to like-minded people who have studied the videos. So there will be a live Zoom question and answer sessions with me, like once a month or so.
Excellent. And then your book will be coming out in the fall.
Yes, my new cookbook it was supposed to go to print on February 15th, and there was a complication, so it's delayed by about 10 days. And I'm still working. I mean, it's kind of done. We're just finalizing the book covers, and it will go to print very soon. And it's supposed to be released in September.
Great. Well, wonderful. You have been very busy, and we appreciate you putting out all this wonderful information into the world, because I think the how-to videos are really needed. Again, there's lots of cookbooks out there which are wonderful, but these interactive videos will really help people.
Yes, I'm very excited about them, and I hope that this is just the beginning, because I have so much more to share.
Right.
And make it accessible and make it fun.
Excellent. Well, you're doing a great job, and you're a great teacher, and you know, it's really wonderful what you're sharing with people, and like you said, empowering people to really understand and enjoy cooking their own food and making their own food.
Yeah, thank you, Colette. You're a great teacher too, and I always appreciate how accessible you make the application of Ayurveda in people's lives. So thank you for your continued work in this area.
Thank you so much. I appreciate those kind words. All right, my dear. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to chat to us today. Before we finish up, just let people know where they can find all these goodies. And I believe you have an offer as well.
Yes, please visit our website, divyaskitchen.com. This is our restaurant website and our online store. And we're offering, for all listeners of this podcast, we're offering 15% off your first purchase. So the code, Colette, you put it in the description, right? Elements of Ayurveda 15.
Yep.
Would love for you to try our products and give us your feedback.
Great. Well, you will find all those links and the code in the show notes, but please check it out. Divya, as always, a great conversation. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Colette. Always a pleasure.
I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Divya, and please check out the show notes for the link to Divya's website and that discount code. Don't forget that I have that upcoming discounted group, Digestive Reset Cleanse, starting March 25th, 2022. So register today and then you can book your 90-minute consult online so I can tailor the cleanse to your needs. Also, if you think that this episode will be helpful to family or friends, please share it with them so we can spread this information. And if you haven't already subscribed to the podcast, please do so. If you'd like to rate and review it, I would really appreciate it wherever you listen to your podcasts. And check us out on social media at Elements Healing and Wellbeing on Instagram and Facebook. Thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, take good care of yourself, be well, and bye for now. Slán go fóill.